What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Midwest Sports Hour. My name is Isaiah Bella. I am your host this morning. And for everyone watching on YouTube, I already know what you're thinking. Isaiah, your hair looks amazing. How do you do it? Well, here's the trick. I don't have to do anything. My hair has like a mind of its own at this point. It's gotten too long. Haircut coming soon. Stay tuned. Anyway, today is a big day. Oh, first, wanted to throw this out there real quick. So, speaking of YouTube, since we just started making content, or at least releasing our content to YouTube, I'm starting to get the hang of it. It's been a lot of fun. We only have 18 subscribers so far, but that's opposed to like the couple that we've had over the last how long. Haven't really been making content there, but starting to get the hang of it. And I know that a lot of channels have have something fun that they do when it comes to reaching milestones, and I kind of wanted to do something like that. So came up with something on my own. For every milestone that we reach on YouTube, for every however many subscribers that we get, I'll buy a jersey. How I'm going to determine how I'm going to pick a jersey to buy. Maybe I'll let a viewer pick the jersey. Maybe I will use a randomizer. Maybe I'll just pick one. I don't know. Maybe I'll just pick something that I like. Regardless, I think that's something fun that I would want to do for the channel. We're at 18 now. I think the first milestone that I want to reach is 100. Just 100 subscribers. I think that'd be pretty cool. And we'll set the first goal there. And the second goal, maybe I'll just make the next goal 200, and so on and so forth, and we'll go on from there. But for now, 100 subscribers. If we get there, we'll pick a jersey, and yeah, that'll be cool. But today is a very important day for the NFL offseason. It is officially the opening of NFL free agency. I am so excited. This is one of my favorite times of the year. You know, teams are looking to upgrade. They're looking to push themselves into playoff contention, or if a team is not anywhere close to playoff contention, maybe they're just looking to make a splash signing to make their team entertaining in some way, shape, or form. Last year, you know, you had DeAndre Hopkins, who wanted to go to a contender and wanted to play with a quarterback that's respectable, and he ended up signing with the Tennessee Titans. I don't know, but that was one of the bigger moves last year. And there are a lot of names, a lot of big names that a few of them have already made their moves. Chris Jones, is that his name? Chris Jones from the Kansas City Chiefs, defensive tackle. He's already signed his extension. Can't remember exactly what the deal is, but it's like $31 million a year for 5 years. That's insane. No one else would be able to afford that. So good for him. But a few teams to look at too that are going to be making some very significant moves, specifically in the NFC North. I think the NFC North is going to be wild. It's going to be wildly entertaining this season, and I can't wait to see the results of that at the end of the week, or the end of the next few weeks, I guess, because NFL free agency kind of goes on forever. So anyway, that starts in like a few hours here. So I'm going to try and keep my thoughts short and simple today. Try to keep it consistent. Not really going to put any highlights up today just because I want to be able to get this out there before free agency starts and names start getting signed and whatever. So might as well start off with the Chicago Bears because they've actually made a couple pretty important moves so far. First of all, I think it might be a month ago now that they cut Eddie Jackson and they cut Cody Whitehair. First of all, Those guys were really key pieces for us for so long. Both Pro Bowlers. Believe Cody Whitehair made one Pro Bowl. Eddie Jackson made a couple of them. And if anyone, I mean, obviously, as a Bears fan, you remember the 2018 season. Both of those guys were outstanding. And can't thank those guys enough. But at this point in time, it was really important that the Chicago Bears decide to move on. Eddie Jackson has not played up to the standard that he was used to playing. I feel really bad for saying that because, he was so much fun to watch, especially during 2018. Especially 2018. He was one of the best coverage free safeties in the league, but the last few seasons, he's been far from it. One of the more lackluster tacklers and just can't seem to keep up with people, but he does recognize defenses or offenses pretty well. He's pretty good at calling out what's about to happen. So appreciate Bojack and Cody Whitehair. There was a point last season where we thought maybe we can just slide him over to center because he was a Pro Bowl center in 2018 and beyond. And he was good depth for us for a while. He could swing over to guard if we really needed him to. He played left guard for a while this season. But not only was he not nearly as productive as we needed him to be, but he was also far too expensive for the product that he was putting out there. So both those guys needed to be cut. We moved on. It is what it is. It's the smart move, and I think they made the right choice. And so, leading up to yesterday, the Chicago Bears had been mulling over some things, and they made their first signing, which was Kevin Byard, who had previously been with the Titans for some time, and last season he was with the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, last year, he only had one interception, but I don't think that's totally important for now. The Eagles' defense without Jonathan Gannon there was already a mess. I just think that the Eagles had such a lack of direction at that point. And Byard wasn't really a fit. At least he wasn't to me. And he didn't work out there. So he comes over to the Chicago Bears filling in for Eddie Jackson. And I think he's a great replacement for Eddie. Because all the things that I just said that Eddie Jackson, like the reasons for cutting Eddie Jackson is like the complete opposite for grabbing Kevin Byard. He's a great tackler. He's super smart. He is 31 years old, but I don't really think that matters because consistency has been the theme for him. And the most consistent aspect of his game, he does not miss games. He's never missed a game in his entire 8-year career, which is incredible. And we all know how Chicago is with the injury bug. When injuries plague Chicago, it's like nonstop. If we miss one person, we miss everybody. So, really glad to have him around. And, speaking of the secondary, Jalen Johnson got his extension. So happy about that one. You know how often it is that the Chicago Bears make a smart move in free agency or in the draft to build toward the future? Drafting Jalen Johnson in the second round was one of the only smart things Ryan Pace ever did in his tenure. And, it was pretty obvious that Jalen Johnson last year is one of the best corners in the league, especially at his age. You kidding me? He's like 24, 23 years old. I think he's 24. And statistically speaking, he was probably the most efficient corner in the league last season. And there was a point at the beginning of the year where he and Ryan Poles kind of butt heads a little bit, Jalen Johnson said that he was going to request a trade if he didn't get a deal done. And Ryan Poles said, hey, listen, don't worry about it. You're going to get your deal. Just play out this season, and then we'll revisit contract talks after the fact. And Jalen Johnson went on to put up not only like a top 2 to 3 performance among corners this season, but by far the best performance of his whole career. He was excellent this year. And I'd argue that there were a lot of games that the Bears stayed in because of him. Really hard to get a solid cornerback one that you know that you can lean on for years to come. That's what Jalen Johnson is. And they had to keep him on the roster. You know, they had to find a way to get that deal done. And they did. And at a very, very good price. 24 years old. He's going to be a cornerstone piece for us going forward. And yeah, one of the best young corners in the league. I'm excited for that one. Other than that, lots of talks about certain free agents and what may happen once free agency opens today. The Bears, we know that they've been talking to Saquon Barkley, and they're very serious about Saquon Barkley. I think that'd be pretty exciting. You know, obviously, the last few times that the Bears have played the Giants and had to face off against him, he's hurt us badly. And I think that alongside Caleb Williams, assuming that they get Caleb Williams, and they upgrade the offensive line the way that they should, and they get another target for him. If Saquon is back there, we benefit from that so much, especially with how deep the running back room is. Him, Khalil Herbert, and Roschon Johnson. Come on, that's disgusting. That'd be amazing. I like him a lot. Another running back. Oh, by the way, the Bears are kind of fighting off the Houston Texans for Saquon. So if that doesn't work out, another running back that they're also in serious contention for is Josh Jacobs. I like Josh Jacobs a lot. There was some time where a lot of us were talking about who's the better back, Josh Jacobs or David Montgomery. And I always swore up and down that David Montgomery was the better back, even though they were both 1,000-yard backs. And at the time, putting up pretty much the same production. But over time, Josh Jacobs has really made a name for himself. And I'm shocked that the Raiders wouldn't fight to keep him around. You know? I get it. Jacobs was asking for a lot of money last year. He did actually end up getting quite a bit. But for a long-term deal, the Raiders were probably not going to commit to him. So he's on the market. I think the Bears will definitely consider him. They may still sign a starting center. Who that would be, I don't know. We did just trade for Ryan Bates, but I don't think it. If I had to guess, Ryan Bates is probably not the starter. He already wasn't the starter with Buffalo, and Buffalo, they cut their starting center and Ryan Bates because they had to make room for cap space. Basically just did a purge of their roster. And the Bears were really considering him since 22. I don't know if anyone remembers, but the Bears made an offer to Ryan Bates off waivers. And then the Buffalo Bills matched their offer and kept him there. Ryan Poles obviously is still a big fan of him. Ryan Poles and Ian Cunningham, they fought to get him here. They traded a 5th-round pick for him. And I think he's going to be excellent depth in case people get hurt. Bears have, a big injury history. Last year, Nate Davis, it was hard to keep him around. And Tevin Jenkins still has his back problems, so you never know. But I don't think he's going to be a starter, though. And someone like Connor Williams, who, granted, still has a bit of an injury history, but not as daunting. I think he's an immediate starter, and he's one of the better young prospects in this free agency class. So I like Connor Williams a lot. Receiver is still a huge need. In particular, this round of free agents for wide receiver it's not great, but I think it's great for depth. So someone who I really wanted the Bears to go after is no longer on the market, which was Michael Pittman. He would have been a fantastic wide receiver too if Chicago couldn't go after a wide receiver too in the draft. It's kind of looking likely that might be the case. You know, what if Malik Neighbors and Rome Odunze are not there? You're going to need one. And Pittman is one of the best, like, 50-50 ball catchers out there. He's such a good route runner, a great prospect, and the Colts locked him up. So, can't go after him. So, who else is out there? Calvin Ridley, who's going to be too expensive, and a lot of people seem to think he's going to go to the Patriots. So, I don't think he's going to be available at all. So, who do you like? Well, I like Curtis Samuel. I think a lot of us see Curtis Samuel as a really good wide receiver 3. He has been for some time now. He's actually been a good wide receiver 2 for the couple teams that he's been on. And under Shane Waldron, Waldron is going to be looking at multiple options. That's what he prioritized when he was with the Seahawks. He loves depth. So I like Curtis Samuel a lot, and I also kind of like Gabe Davis. People definitely have their mixed feelings about Gabe Davis because he's a bit of a wild card, but he does everything that you ask of him to do. And there are some days where he just comes out of nowhere and just pops off, With the Bills, it seemed like either he was getting you 2 receptions for 8 yards and no touchdowns, and then the next game he would get you 10 receptions for 120 yards and 3 touchdowns. It was one or the other, no in between whatsoever. So I don't know, but other aspects of his game though, he's a great run blocker, and that's something that Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles prioritize a lot, is that if you want to get on the field, you got to be willing to block. So I could definitely see them grabbing him as a wide receiver 3. Was a great wide receiver 3 for the Bills. So, yeah, that's kind of who I'm looking at for a wide receiver. Don't really know if there's any other major needs. They do need an edge, but there's like a million edges out there right now. Safety's already been taken care of. So, but I do see the Chicago Bears making a big splash move today. Who is that going to be? Obviously can't be Chris Jones. Could it be Danielle Hunter, who they had been seriously interested in for quite some time? Could it be, and the Detroit Lions are also really interested in. So could it be Danielle Hunter? Could it be Christian Wilkins? Last season, as we all know, the Chicago Bears really surprised us with how much money he was willing to spend on defense, in particular the linebackers. They grabbed Tremaine Edmonds and they grabbed TJ Edwards. Both of those guys panned out for us really, really well, obviously. But none of us really saw that coming. And I could definitely see, with how much cap space we have, Christian Wilkins would push us over the edge in terms of potential. Him alongside with Javon Dexter and Montez Sweat, whoever you want to put at edge, I don't know. DeMarcus Walker at that point could be productive with those people next to him. And I could see it happening. I could see it happening. Eberflus prioritizes a 3-tech. He loves his 3-techs. And Wilkins is one of the best of them. So I could see it. I don't know. I have a feeling. But other than him, AJ Epineza is out there, also from the Buffalo Bills. Could it be Khalil Mack? Khalil Mack may be cut today because I think the Chargers are going to be moving on from a lot of the big names on their roster, including Joey Bosa, who they made available for trade. They made him and Khalil Mack available for trade, but I don't think there's going to be any partners to grab either one of those guys. Who's going to be willing to give up capital for two players who are, number one, aging, number two, expensive? I can't see it. So if Khalil Mack is made available and your best edge opposite of Montez Sweat is DeMarcus Walker, absolutely you're bringing back. Absolutely. How many sacks did he have last year? Like 17? That's crazy. 6 sacks in one game. And every Bears fan on the planet would love to see Khalil Mack come back. And mind you, this is a lot different than the Robert Quinn situation, because Robert Quinn, you could see a mile away that his 18.5 sack year was not going to happen again. And the following season, he had the 1 sack. We traded him right before the deadline, and he ended up with, guess how many sacks? 1. 1 total. 0 with the new team. Mack is a bit different. Mack is like, he's got like 4 or 5 really good years in him left. And this could be one of those things where if the Bears are trying to get back into a contention window and they want to expand on that, Khalil Mack helps us out tremendously. He's still one of the strongest defensive linemen out there. And obviously he's still productive in both pass defense and rush defense. So, yeah, come back to Chicago, man. I still got his jersey. I'd love to put that jersey back on. I mean, I'm still gonna wear the Khalil Mack jersey, the Bears jersey, but I like to wear while he's still on the team, So those are who I think the Chicago Bears will be focusing on this week. We'll see kind of how everything pans out. Like I said, Ryan Poles knows how to surprise us. And I can't help but think that today or in the coming days, he's going to do it again. He's in position to. Number 1 and number 9 pick. Lots of cap space. Plenty of holes to fill. We'll see what he does. Another team, though, in the NFC North that I think is going to be making some very big moves and some crucial decisions going forward is the Detroit Lions. This is the Detroit Lions' year to make their way to the top. Okay? There were some moments last year where they could have done so, and they decided not to. Like when they were in the market to trade for Montez Sweat and they passed on him, and Sweat ended up going to the Bears for a 2nd-round pick. That ended up being a really, really nice trade for us. And, this year they have another opportunity, man. But you have to look at their positions of need as well. So where should their focus be? Number 1, safety and corner. They don't need a strong safety. That's Brian Branch. He's there already. And he's excellent. I'm still shocked that they ended up getting Brian Branch at the spot that they did. But man, just about everywhere else in that secondary is hurting. hurting badly. CJ Gardner-Johnson, he was okay, but he's gone. So that's a hole that you need to fill. Cam Sutton, and Emmanuel Mosley. Granted, we didn't get to see Emmanuel Mosley play that much this year because he was injured, but he's not dependable. You know, I don't think you can rely on him as your number one starting corner. You know, like you're still going to be in the same spot that you were at the end of last season if that's the case. And Cam Sutton was one of the worst corners in the league last year. Majority of the season, though, Mosley being out with injury, you had Kindle Vildor. Bears fans know Kindle Vildor. I can tell you that right now. And I'm not surprised at how bad he was. Anyway, I think that's number one. And then number two, which is a close second, should be edge rushers. Listen, I love Aiden Hutchinson. He's amazing. As a Michigan fan who got to watch him for a couple seasons, I know exactly what caliber player he is. And I think this year he went from rising star to superstar in a matter of like a few games. You know, and the playoffs like elevated him to a whole new level, you know? What was it? 8 sacks in a matter of just a few games in the playoffs? He's awesome, man, but he can't do it by himself. That's the whole thing, you know? Double teams and triple teams take him out of the equation, and then after that, what do you have? Nothing. Aleem McNeil was pretty good this year. He had a really productive season, but he's the only noteworthy tackle on the team. Isaiah Buggs was there for a minute, but, you know, apparently Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell had other ideas. They had other higher expectations of him. He did not meet those expectations, and thus he was benched and eventually released. And he went to the Chiefs. So he's not there anymore. And who was their other edge rusher? I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Something Houston. Wasn't he injured most of the season, I think? But even so, he's not a future asset that you can build on. You know, you need another person who can take the edge off of the other side, you know? Take those double teams away from Aiden Hutchinson and go to work. And they have not had that. That pass rush was not very good for the second half of the season, and that proved to be costly for the secondary. That hurt the secondary a lot. Down the road, especially. And on top of that, they have a new position of need. A new position that is going to create problems later on, which is the guard position. Now, the Lions had, in my opinion, the best offensive line in the league. And Jonah Jackson and Graham Glasgow were huge parts of that. They're not like top tier talents at the guard position, but they were important. And now I think both of them may be moving on. We don't know. Maybe Glasgow comes back, but I don't think Glasgow is going to be coming back. And you don't know if they're going to address that in free agency or the draft. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But that is going to be a big focus this offseason for them. Because if they can't get that, well, Jared Goff is going to be in trouble. Regardless of how good Frank Ragnow and Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker are, you need those interior pieces. You need them. Trust me. As a guy who has had the displeasure of watching Chicago offensive lines my entire life, just please don't make the mistake of passing up the opportunity to fix that position. Please do yourselves a favor, okay? And the season outcome, I think, kind of shows why those other two positions are big areas of need. Listen, I'm not going to go in depth on the loss in the postseason. I will say, though, that once the Lions lost momentum going for that first fourth down, it was vitally important that they get in Brock Purdy's face and get the ball back. They couldn't get in his face. They really couldn't do anything to the guy for the entire second half. It was so easy for him to just scamper away and let one of his superstar targets get open and do the work for him. Aiden Hutchinson had a really good first half, I think, and then just disappeared for the second half. There was no pressure whatsoever. And Cam Sutton, oh man. Cam Sutton and CJ Gardner-Johnson, both just cooked, burnt toast. I can't really describe the disaster that I witnessed on my TV screen after that string of events. And personally, I thought that some of these things could have been avoided if they had made a couple changes in their draft strategy. I already know I'm gonna get some people who are like, oh, you're one of the doubters of, like, oh, you thought they reached on every pick, didn't you? Like, no, I swear, I think they did pick some phenomenal players. Just not players that they needed. Okay? Sam Laporta is awesome. Jahmyr Gibbs, he's incredible. One of the best players at the running back position last year, and he's only going to get better. But when they had the pick, the higher pick, I think they were waiting for Devon Witherspoon, who I had them picking at, what was it, number 6? I think it was number 6. And the Seahawks got a hold of him first, and the Lions traded back. So they trade back, and it's like, okay, where do you trade back to? You could just go back to, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8, take Jalen Carter. Like I said, they need a defensive tackle, so he definitely could be a huge upgrade for them. They passed on him, just like plenty of other teams did. Whatever. Okay, so you pass on Jalen Carter. Christian Gonzalez is sitting right there. A lot of people had Christian Gonzalez as the best corner on the board or in the draft in general. And he had a really productive year this year. He had a great season. But they passed on him too. He went to the Raiders. And so they decided to take a running back with a very similar play style to DeAndre Swift. And to me, this is just my personal opinion, okay? Obviously, if you went back and redid that draft and you didn't take Jahmyr Gibbs, you miss out on a pretty electric player. I get it, okay? But if you went back and redid the draft and you took Gonzalez or Jalen Carter, what would the outcome be for Lions 49ers if they just needed a couple stops? You know, just to get a couple stops and slow down this 49ers offense that is dynamic and they're quick, and when they get momentum, it's almost impossible to let go of it. And one mistake after another. They there was the weird exchange between Goff and Gibbs. They fumbled the ball. Niners get the ball back. No pressure, no stopping Brock Purdy and Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk through the air. They're getting destroyed in the middle of the field. Let up another touchdown. On the opposite end, Lions couldn't move again. And then the 49ers get the ball back and they score again. These things are important. The Lions need another edge. They need another corner. Otherwise, how are you going to stop these guys? The 49ers are going nowhere. So addressing these positions are going to be vitally important for them going forward. And again, I'm not going to say that they got their picks wrong, because obviously Brad Holmes is a really good talent evaluator. And I think he knows what he wants when building for the future. Could be very successful at that again this season, even though they have later picks. But this is the kind of position you want to be in. Just kind of limiting those holes to fill would have been nice in the first place. So we'll see how they decide to go about that this year. What is my prediction on how they decide to do that? Well, first, I think they do make a splash signing at edge. Possibly Danielle Hunter. We all know how NFC North teams are when it comes to rival players being available on the market. For some reason, the Bears love signing Packers, even though it's a horrible idea. And the Vikings have signed Lions players in the past. And I think something similar will happen this year. It's just the way things are in the NFC North. This is a trend. The trend will keep going. And I think the Lions will probably go after Hunter. If not him, they could go after Jonathan Greenard from the Houston Texans, who had another great year last year. He had 12.5 sacks, I believe. Very quick around the edge. And that way they won't have to address that position in the draft. And one other thing they could do is possibly trade for L'Jarius Sneed, or L'Jarius Sneed, I think that's his name, from the Kansas City Chiefs. They were going to just sign him if that was an option for them in free agency, but the Chiefs signed him to a franchise tag, so it's going to be very hard for them to move off of him. If Sneed doesn't just outright play this season on the tag, he's going to get signed. But he's been made available for trade. So could the Lions trade future assets for Sneed? I don't know, because that could involve their first round pick this year, which would not be ideal. And on top of that, Ryan Poles and Brad Holmes have a very similar ideology when it comes to using draft capital. Very rarely are they going to trade away capital, because they see those picks as incredibly valuable when building a roster and building a culture. You need those picks. So I don't if it involves the number 29 pick, I don't see it happening, which means that that's something that they could move toward in the draft. However, it also kind of depends on what they want to do at guard. I think possibly Graham Glasgow could come back to the Lions and fill in one of those guard spots. They're going to have to do something. That's two starting guards that they need to take care of. And Glasgow, like I said, was so important for them. So I don't see them truly moving off of both of those guys. Jonah Jackson, though, is the less valuable one, in my opinion. So bring back Graham Glasgow. Don't worry about the 29 pick in using that on an offensive lineman. You have depth there. Just try to get the most out of it. If not, though, the number 29 pick could be Zach Frazier. He's the best guard in the draft this year, for sure. It's not a bad pick whatsoever. It's just when you have to use that pick on a guard and you still have holes to fill in other places, edge is a little easier to take care of in free agency this year. Corner is not. Plenty of corners that they could point their attention to this year, whether it could be Quinion Mitchell out of Toledo, could be Kool-Aid McKinstry out of Alabama, or several others. Even Mikey Sandra for a slot corner. Who knows? It's going to be really interesting, but with those moves made this year for the Lions, a lot of things get accomplished. Number one, their defensive line, if they get an edge, they keep their 1-2 punch, or they gain a 1-2 punch, I should say. Opposite of Aiden Hutchinson, it makes things easier, a lot easier for him to be more consistent and more productive going forward. He's one of the best edges in the league. Get him some help. Let's add another big name back there and create some havoc. This is your time to do it. And after the defensive line, the secondary has a chance to solidify their cornerstones of the future. Jalen Johnson was someone who the Lions were also targeting if he were to become available. But the Bears made sure that did not happen. And when Chicago did so, they made sure they got their cornerback one going forward. They've had top corners in the past, like Charles Tillman and Tim Jennings, and those guys proved to be incredibly beneficial for Chicago for how many years? They were major contributors to some of the top scoring offenses in NFL history. So I think it's important that you lock down that position, and trading for Snead would probably be the way to go. And so offensive line, if you grab Glasgow, at the very least, that much would keep Jared Goff upright. And the Lions offensive line would probably stay the best in the league. To me, they're the best in the league. I don't think there's any offensive line unit in the NFL that can compare. I'm not sure how else to put that. It's an outstanding unit. And with that being said, if they can get those things done one after another, they can push themselves over the top and grab a Super Bowl while they have the chance. This is their moment. I'm not a Lions fan by any means, but it's not hard to see a legitimate contender when it's right in front of your face. The Lions, they retained Ben Johnson somehow. I don't know how they did it, but they retained Ben Johnson. Aaron Glenn's coming back. They have more consistency on both sides of the ball. You have Jared Goff in his prime years. You have Amon-Ra St. Brown. You have one of the best, if not the best, running back room in the league. The best offensive line in the league. An ascending defense. Take advantage of this. And they will get their first NFC championship in their history, and they will get the first Super Bowl in their history, and Detroit has every right to just explode after that. So even as a Bears fan, I got high hopes for you, Detroit. Very high expectations. I really hope you don't make me look stupid. Okay? Please don't make me look stupid. Honestly on everything though, it would be nice to see Detroit make it to that point, you know? Because they deserve a winner. And this is their best chance to do it. So with that being said, free agency, that starts today. I can't remember what time exactly that's going to start, but we're going to have a lot of answers to a lot of huge questions later today. And I'm so ready. I'm so excited. We'll see. With that being said, that's going to be the end of this episode. Next episode, we'll talk about the results of a lot of those signings and what that means for the future and what that'll mean for the NFL draft. Hopefully, like I said last episode, the next time we talk, a trade will have gone down for either Justin Fields or the number 1 pick. We don't know which one they're leaning for right now. People say that they definitively know, but they don't. They're lying if they do say that. So hopefully by the next time we talk, something will have gone down and we can go on from there. And also, one thing I'd like to talk about, we haven't talked at all about Michigan basketball, and for good reason. They suck. But there's some pretty important things about to go down with Michigan basketball, and I don't think they're good things. I really don't. It sure seems like Ward Manuel is getting in the way of progress, and Juwan Howard may or may not keep his job for another year, which is it's mind-blowing. I don't really understand that at all. But we'll go over that next time. Until then, thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed. Remember, if you're tuning in from Spotify, thank you for listening. And if you're tuning in from YouTube, remember to like and subscribe. And until next time, I'll see you then. Peace.